Hi, I'm Sweta Sinha, and I head the AI at SN Learning. It's a tech company with which empowers organizations to improve their student performance onto the licensure exam. Now, when we are talking about improving performance, that means we have to be proactive. And when we are talking about being proactive, AI is where we can take help from. Now, with AI also comes the AI governance. I'm hearing a lot of talk, use cases about AI, and it is very important for us to also integrate AI governance into those use cases. So here I'm talking about AI governance for building responsible and ethical AI system and share some of my experience. So AI is going to gain human-level intelligence by 2029. And this is a prediction which is made by Ray Kurzweil. He's a well-known AI futurist, inventor, and author of Singularity is Near. He goes on to make another prediction around AI is going to surpass collective human-level intelligence by 2045, which is a very bold prediction. And if when we say 2045 surpassing human-level intelligence, that means we are invoking the concept of singularity, beyond which AI is not under human control. Now, there's a lot of debate that's going on these particular predictions. However, it gives us to have one critical thinking that we should all be now thinking about these bold predictions if they come true. Are we prepared? Are we in control of AI when that time comes so that that time never comes and we are able to govern our AI system for the benefit of humanity? Now that is where we all need to start thinking about. I'm going to cover start with the background, talk about the AI governance, why we need that principle, and then principle to practices. Some of the best practices we can actually consider here, and some tools and technologies which will help us with those practices implementation. So I'll take you to the down memory lane of when humanity first invented fire. At that time, the human settlement started there, and it triggers the whole agricultural revolution and industrial revolution. And with the invent of machinery, it triggered the industrial revolution 1.0. With electricity, we got into 2.0. With digital technology, we went on to 3.0. And now, with the integration of all these various technologies together, we are into the current era of 4.0. However, as we are going from Industrial Revolution 1.0 to 4.0, the complexity is increasing, and so is the risk. If you think about between 2 and 3, we discover the immense power of nuclear energy. And at the same time, we also invented the atom bomb. This was the time when we realized that if we do not use atom bomb with care, it could be very devastating, not only on the human life, also devastating to the nature. We could control it by applying a lot of rules, regulations, and governance around nuclear energy usage. And now we are able to harness that pretty well to use it for our purpose, our needs, so to kind of like more sustainable energy source. And the same thing we need to think about for AI before it becomes too dangerous for us not to be able to control. So going back to the AI governance, I took this, everyone is talking about the ChatGPT. And I took one just for experimentation purpose. I asked ChatGPT, write a story about nurse. And the first thing it gave was of gender association with female. I experimented a little bit more, and I asked, tell me a story, motivational story about nurse to a kid. And this time, again, it gave the gender association of female with the kid and with the nurse. Now and every time with nurse, they are associating, it is associating the gender female. When I asked the same thing about engineer, I got mixed. First, it was male and then female. And I experimented again a little bit more, because I know that AI ChatGPT creators are very much, like, they really looked into the bias aspect of that to build a system which is as much bias-free as they can. So I again asked, tell me a story about nurse who is a boy. And that time, the ChatGPT, I was surprised. The ChatGPT gave an answer that there was a boy named Jake, and that he was very different, and he wanted to be a nurse. And then kind of repeated that story. Like, what is happening here? It is actually transferring the societal bias, perpetuating the societal bias into our future generation. Because I see my elementary school kid is using the ChatGPT as a homework assistant, virtual homework assistant, or any kind of Q&A buddy right now. See, on the surface, it seems to be a very small problem. But if I look into deeply, this type of generative AI capabilities is gonna be used by our younger generation, and it's gonna impact their young mind in a very biased way. And we need to start thinking about it more deeper and broader. These are some of the instances I have already, we kind of know about that. Being in the AI world, we know about that. That kind of bias happens. And for example, it impacts on all levels, from financial to the life-changing decision level. For example, Apple actually issued a credit card, and it was biased towards female gender, and despite having the same financial information, Steve Ives, the Apple co-founder, Steve Ives, got 10 times less credit limit than Steve. Now, going back to the Amazon recruiting tool, it was favoring the male gender in favor of some of the technical roles. Now, when you start going into how it is being used in the criminal justice system, the stakes are high. And we see that there was one black female who was actually, for a minor offense, her risk to re-offend was much higher than the other male Werner Prater, who had attempted robbery and all those cases as well. The risk was lower for that person, and the female black was having a very high risk. All of this tells us that our AI system, when we build our AI system, we think about using the data, recognizing this pattern, without thinking about how it will be used by the users, how it will be used against some of the users. So this is one of the case study I just took from the COVID. We all got negatively impacted with the COVID. And the oximeter, we might be remembering the oximeter. We all, if anyone is sick, we just used to plug in our oximeter. And what was realized later on, that this oximeter was not reporting right oxygen level for people of color. And that actually helped them that actually resulted in doctors not having a proper intervention. Then they actually need and time. And sometimes it also caused kind of death and delayed diagnosis and treatment. And they could not be treated until the things become very severe. Again, the other case study is recidivism prediction. Now, just because it was a high risk, it also resulted in someone who is first-time offender, but just because of the ethnicity, gender, and all these other pieces, they are coming as a high risk, and the judge gave them more fine and more prison terms. This is not fair. So criminal offense should be depending upon the criminal real propensity to, again, do the crime, and not on the other factors. And that is where AI governance comes in, that when we are building AI products, we should take care of making sure that this is bias-free. We are taking all consideration around whether we are building this like a system, the product, with all population that it will be used for. And it, on an overall level, it provides a framework for building the like, ethical, fair, and transparent AI system. And it kind of like also tells us about the policy, describe the policies, provide the guideline, and how to create a right AI system and how to use it in the right way. This year, White House actually printed this, like, provided this guideline for the blueprint for AI Bill of Rights. And this is something that what we are coming into understanding, that all organizations are now obligated to make sure that the products that are creating, the AI products they are creating, are actually governed. And they have also defined a very great principles around how we should be creating a right governed AI system. Now, this is something which is new, which is coming from the White House itself under this blueprint for AI Bill of Rights. However, I know that there are companies who are actually using this AI governance, but more or less, the governance framework looks like this. And the one which I'm showing here is what is also included in the Bill of Rights and what the principles we should be following. So it will help all of us to refer to that Bill of Rights and work onto those principles and define our policies and regulations around those principles. And it starts from building a safe and effective system. Safe and effective system means we are looking into the data privacy, protected by data. We are developing the system. If it can be used by everyone else, we need to make sure that everyone else should benefit from that system. Another principles that is around the AI governance is providing the right notice and communication and explainability about your AI system. And that goes around the ML transparency, fairness, bias evaluations, and being able to explain the models. Right now, we tend to use the models which are very complex, and the reason why we use those models which are very complex is because they are more accurate. However, with accuracy also comes a trade-off of less explainability. But there are ways to be able to explain those models as well. Communication is another key aspect of that. How did we build this AI product? And what are the limitations of those AI products? What it can do and how it should not be used should also be very much communicated very well. The third piece is about when we are building an AI system, we must make sure that the algorithm that is being used in the system is not discriminatory. And there are ways in terms of fairness evaluation, in terms of being able to build the most simplest system that can be also provide us the right accuracy. We can actually achieve those. The last piece we keep talking about, augmented AI, which is around the human alternative consideration and feedback. So whenever AI system is not very confident of its own decision, at that time, a fallback, human in the loop approach should be used, and it should provide a fallback that a human is actually added into this loop of decisions. Data privacy is something which is very important for all of us, that when whose data is being used in the building the model and for whom it will be served. Those data, we are keeping those data private, and only we all are used to looking into fine prints, and those fine prints we kind of agree is our responsibility as an AI creator that fine prints should be not fine enough that everyone is ignoring it. So it should be actually communicated well, and users should have option to opt out from the data privacy, data sharing stuff. It should be on to users how they want. The user owns their own data, and it is on to user how the AI system or AI, the company organizations which is company building this AI system should be using their data and sharing their data. Now, when we talk about coming from principles to practices, there are two key aspects that we should be taking care of. The first is organizational level of AI governance. On the organizational level, we are talking more about enforcing, like defining our principles, defining our policies around that principles, how to enforce these policies. And when we are talking about enforcing these policies, means that we are defining the law and regulation that we must adhere to, the AI products must adhere to, and then make everyone accountable. It is not only the AI team responsibility to be, that they are accountable for the product they are creating, for their correctness, bias-free, and all these things. It comes from the leadership level itself, that the organization themselves would be responsible. And the product team, all the sales team, marketing team, they all are equally accountable for building the product which is bias-free and is governed for the uses by all the users that it is intended to be. The second piece is more around the model AI governance, and model AI governance is basically like, are we making sure that the data governance, data privacy, data quality, the data that we are putting into the system to build this AI model are right, correct, accurate, and they are bias-free and represent the entire population that it is intended to be used for. The model governance is around making sure that the model stays up to date, model is actually evaluated for bias and evaluated for like fairness, transparency, explainability, and all this aspect. And it continuously stays in the monitoring pipeline so that we are able to monitor and evaluate at any point of time if my model is still behaving the same way as it was when it was developed for the first time. Performance monitoring and control should be always in a iterative fashion and continual iterative fashion, where we should continue monitoring our bias and fairness even when we go into the future, when the model is deployed. Model should stay explainable all the time, and we should be able to also not only provide predictions, but also explanatory around why the model is giving that prediction for one particular user. Because the user is actually a one person. It impacts one person. It's not a data points. So we should be actually very mindful of that, the transparency aspect of that. The robustness is around how to keeping that model updated always, so that we know in future also it is working as it was intended to be. And privacy and security is something we need to make sure that the private data is taken care of rightly. And also, we are not introducing any kind of security vulnerability in the model, that it cannot be attacked by, there is no cyber attack on these kind of our models. So we need to take care of all those aspects as well. So on the legal and regulatory framework, in the US so far, they are like, these are the ones which we actually should be following in different space. And so the first one, like I just timelined on, and this US regulatory framework are very fragmented and is still evolving. They are still not finalized, and as AI, as we come to know more and more challenges about AI system, it will continue to be evolved, and maybe we'll be seeing more acts coming in the future. And what I have listed here, there are many regulations from the different countries as well, but what I have listed here is the one which is applicable to US. And we know about the Fair Credit Reporting Act, and this came in 1970, but all the financial institutions still needs to adhere to the FCRA Act, even though the AI system is used in that industry. FERPA is most of around educational system. So we are in the healthcare, in the EdTech, and all of our AI system is actually also should adhere to the FERPA regulations. HIPAA, on the health side, all the health, we need to, the AI system should be regulated by HIPAA, and GDPR, this is a misspelling here, my typo. GDPR, this is from European Union, but US also follows that GDPR for the General Data Privacy Act. Now in 2021, US Senate actually introduced the National Intelligence Initiative Act, and that also kind of governs how AI systems should be used. And now in 2022, the most recent one, they came up with the Algorithmic Accountability Act, where it's not only that you build a model and deliver it to the users, you should also be accountable for what you are delivering and how it should be like helping the users and how it is limited and not should be used. It's very important not to only use the intended purpose of the AI, but also see how unintended way it can be used as well. So for the AI creators, AI team who are building this AI product, when we are talking about the principles to practice, these are the roadmap actually they can follow to be able to create and make sure that every check marks are being taken care of, and we are building a governed AI solution which is bias-free as much as we can make it. First of all, we start with the AI application description. The moment we start thinking about this is the kind of AI application we are going to create, that is where we need to think about how this AI system will be used, who would be using it, what kind of decision that AI system will be making, whether it will be autonomous or it will be human in the loop decisions. It is to help make the decision, or AI itself will make the automated decisions. It further goes on to evaluate on, at that time, what kind of data is being used. Are we also trying to use any PII data, sensitive data? Now, apart from the intended use, we also need to analyze what is the unintended use that might happen. For example, I will give you one instance in the education world. So if you're developing an AI system which is for, let's say, for admission, now it can be used two ways. It can be used to look into the applicant's profile, look into the risk factor that they might not graduate later on, and provide the right help for them to be able to graduate later. So that AI has more positive impact on the learners. Compare that to another situation where this admission model is used to reject my students, that they are not the right fit because their risk level is high. I'm not going to provide them the opportunity to go through my college. So that is very life-changing decision impact. So now we also need to understand the benefits of AI, consider the legal and ethical consideration. What are the regulatory framework that applies here? Assess. When we say the assess whether there are other ways to be able to create a simpler model or simpler system without going very complex. Then, of course, looking into the transparency and safety aspect of that, looking into this fairness, evaluating this fairness, explainability. And then the next one would be being accountable, making the whole organization accountable for their product. And the last one, which one of my speaker friend also talked about, Kim, she also mentioned about the AI review ethic board. And this is something that when we are talking about creating a system, this must be in play here to be able to make sure that the model, the product is developed in a responsible way. And we talk about the AI ethic board. So it has the representation of everyone from the product team, from the domain expert, from the AI data science team, from the user representatives, from the legal and security. And that comprises the entire ethic board that will help us all understand if we have taken into account all the consideration to build a responsible product. And some of the best practices, if we are looking into the AI governance, some of the best practices we can follow around is start with establishing the AI governance framework, then build responsibly. And in that case, when I say build responsibly, that means you evaluate for the fairness, bias, and everything together. You make sure that the model stays up to date. Then communicate, be transparent about how you have created that product. Collaborate with a diverse team, diverse product people, sales, marketing, to understand what is the need, how it will be used. So collaboration is also another key. And then educate the users, educate the other partners in the AI building portfolios. And then diversify. When I say diversify, get the diverse opinion, make sure that the data is diverse as well, which is being used to build the product. So the kind of high-level best practices here. Some of the tools and technologies, I just touched on some of the open source tools and technologies. And I listed then some of these here. On the right side is the left side is the explanatory aspect. On the right side is fairness check. Two of them I actually went through and also put some screenshots. The reason I put the screenshots there are, I find it really useful. When you are starting with the explanatory, I find it really useful to start with the open source and have an interactive dashboard help you understand how you can actually investigate on the transparency and explanatory aspect of that. So I'll go through it quickly. And this one, Aquitas, there are a lot of other tools and technology which I listed there. I found Aquitas really useful. And one of the things which I liked about Aquitas is it is also have an online option that you can actually feed your data in. So follow through all these configuration steps and be able to generate a report, bias reports, kind of tells you all about where you should be looking into to make sure that your product is bias free. So I'll say at the end, AI governance is like flying an airplane, where we have the ground crew, similar like flying crew, similar to interacting with the ground crew. You have everyone in the AI system taking care of this product, and then there's a flying governance where we are actually they are communicating with different folks. They are following the law and regulations to keep the air in the plane in the air. Same here, that we have to make sure that AI governance is in place for us to be able to make sure that we are able to use this AI product in a more responsible way. Yeah, and finally, I think let's build responsibly.
Thank you so much for the talk. My question is about what are your ideas around enforcing this? Because a lot of this is in the private sector. So other than self-enforcing or peer pressure, I guess, is peer pressure the best tool we have for that?
So that's a great question. And a lot of the organizations like mine, we start with, because of there's a need on the regulatory need, for example, that we must adhere to. And then kind of like we are listening, hearing a lot about responsible AI initiatives and all of those things. That becomes also another starting point plus enforcement point. And now, now I'm talking about those which are regulated industry. But now, in the other industry which are not regulated, very soon, they will be forced to, because they will be liable for, because the government is imposing those acts. So what they might not be doing it pretty in the past, but they will have to very soon, because the acts will be enforced by the government itself, even in those unregulated industry.